Welcome. Numbers meeting of the Finance Risk
Anyways, order.
Finance Risk Insurance Committee. And I'll ask, are there any conflicts of interest that committee need to declare at this point in time?
Yes.
Yep.
I am a board member of Tupilana Masterton. There's a report from Business Wairarapa that speaks to that.
Okay. Can that be noted, please? No others? Okay, we need a resolution.
I don't think we do, no.
Okay. I have apologies from Robin, Bex and Nikki Rangi. Are there any other apologies?
Please.
No. We have a mover and seconder to record those apologies, please. Craig and David. Thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. There's no public forum. There's no items not on the agenda. So we'll move on to reports for decision, item 5.1. Andrew.
Thanks, Chair. Welcome, everybody. So look, the purpose of this report is to open a dialogue around Masterton District Council's risk management policy. The policy was due for renewal, and we have looked to update it and make it a little bit more relevant. I would just like to, I'll take it as read, but I'll just go through a couple of points and then open up for discussion. What we're seeking today is you obviously received the report. You note that we put some case studies at the back just to give an example of how you'd look and assess risk. We agree or not agree whether we need to undertake a further workshop as a separate to this committee meeting, and agree that we bring back a final version to the August Finance Risk and Assurance Committee of a final policy for recommendation by this committee to the council to approve. Just in the context, there's been a lot of work over the last few years from auditors general around what they've observed in risk management policies. Part of that is actually understanding what risk is, I think, is that we're trying to help set out in the policy in terms of how you can measure risk, the different types of risk, and potential actions and how you may look to mitigate it and record that risk. So we go on to sort of one of the things that we talk about in the policy when I go to is around risk appetite, and that's in terms of risk adverse, etc. So I'll just go through the risk policy with some pertinent facts in terms of what I wanted to discuss. So in terms of definitions, tried to talk about risk appetite, which is your approach to how you might want to apply risk, your risk tolerance, which is the level of risk or your attitude to risk, and then your risk threshold, which is when you've reached a certain level of risk, you may want to, that's when you think an action has to go through. The policy looks to try and establish a rationale for why we have consistent risk management. It talks about how you look at the types of risk management in terms of corporate versus operational versus specific and emerging risks. It talks about how you assess risk in terms of likelihood and the consequences. And on page 6, it sort of has the graph about when you look at that trade-off between likelihood and consequences. So something may be rare and minor, and so it would have a low level of risk when you're assessing it. And then it talks about how we look to address that risk depending on its risk assessment. Talk about our 9 levels of corporate risk that we're still reporting on, which we'll continue to report on as part of the compliance, and what we'll cover subsequently in our report. And then talks about how we'll look to record and report and review. And then the final 2 appendices in there is in terms of the actual policies, just around the criteria and factors of consequence, and in terms of reference for the Finance Risk and Assurance Committee. So I will open it up to any questions, discussions, observations. Councillor Goodwin was first. Yep.
Just a few on that appendix 1, criteria for factors and consequence. The environmental statutory, zero tolerance for events that adversely affect the environment. I would have thought that's a bit over the top. You know, if it should be just some endeavour to minimise any negative effects on the environment.
Well, yeah, and I guess Councillor Goodwin, this is part of that discussion for us to for councillors to make a direction on where's their appetite. So I guess I'd agree in some ways, but you could say, at what stage do you go, something impacts the environment and it becomes material? So
Yeah, quite right. And well, the other thing on that chart is operational and service and community relationships. Where the indicators threshold, I wondered if the community views survey could be used as that's one of its purposes. I would have thought was increased complaints, faults, or adverse media. You know, it's a bit hard to collate and do anything. Whereas the community view survey is very specific.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Just a general comment, AJ. I think the structure is awesome. It's really easy to read. It's all put together. I really like the page 15, the likelihood and consequences graph. Useful, although you don't have to obviously complete it rigidly stick to it, but it gives us a really clear guideline. That's it. It's a draft, but I think it's a really good start. So
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I did want to actually recognise somebody who's actually left, that Angela Yeoman did contribute a lot to this in terms of putting it together before she left. So I do want to acknowledge that in her absence as well. So
Any other questions or comments? No. So on page 6, we have the recommendations set out. Do we have a mover and seconder for those? Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Tim. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you. Moving on to the audit plan and select. Andrew, that's you.
that's I will take this as read. This is really the audit plan that Audit New Zealand has put together for the 2025-26 annual report audit. And I guess open it to any questions or anything that anybody may have.
Brent.
In those discussions on page 27, discussions with audit, the audit fee, is that proposed to drop 40%?
I guess the question there where they've said is they've only given us a quote for 26-27 because they don't know what the fee will be post water entity. I guess the question will be who will be the auditors of the water entity as well going forward, but that's a separate discussion. So
Well, that's set by statute.
yeah. So look, part of the reason I've only given the quote for this year is because they don't know what the entity and what the audit will be post. So we will have those discussions. I guess part of what we are doing with the audit this year is we're actually having monthly meetings with the audit manager and the audit director as part of improving or increasing the liaison so that we're identifying issues early, both from their perspective for us, in terms of anything that might be impacting the 25-26 annual report.
Another query down on page 36, 35. It talked several times it has 8% materiality. I don't understand why that is. I mean, for instance, roading, the percentage of sealed road network that is resurfaced.
It's the way the, excuse me, Audit New Zealand calculate materiality for non-financial measures. So with the financial statements, they can express materiality in dollars. They can't do that with those non-financial measures. And so they're saying that's the percentage of the threshold that they would need to be material.
So that's an 8% variance from our budgeted expenditure
No, it's nothing to do with expenditure. It's about performance.
performance. I mean, okay. Yeah, sorry, I mean, a good example is the rehabilitation. We do 1%, they want 2%. There's quite a big difference. And yeah,
Well, that's how they express they have to express an opinion on the non-performance, on the non-financial measures. They're just saying that's how they determine materiality.
Without, I suppose if it's easier that, I agree with what Graham said, you know, from a financial perspective, they make a judgment as to, do we consider something's wrong by a particular dollar value that they consider that's a material wrong. You know, we might go plus or minus 5% for a financial thing we're happy with. I guess what Audit New Zealand's trying to do is come up with their own measure of what they consider as material from the non-performance thing in terms of accuracy, because they've obviously they've got to provide a report or an opinion on the accuracy of that non-performance information.
I'll believe you. Yeah. Sorry, I don't understand.
It's hard to understand how you can determine materiality on a non-financial measure. Because when you determine materiality on a financial, it would be what would change a reader's understanding of those financial statements. Well, how do you do that with how many kilometres of road you resealed this year?
Quite easy.
I disagree with
we do report on.
You do. They have to express an opinion.
Okay.
So that's what this is about.
All right.
So,
I acknowledge we had this discussion a little bit offline, but and I acknowledge this very robust process when you look at the audit plan and everything involved in it. But I do note that the cost of the audit is going up 5.2%. Is that a typical price or cost that a council our size will pay for an audit? And can you, as an accountant, I think you are, Graham,
Yes,
can you justify that cost?
I won't answer the second part, but the audit office of the Auditor General can actually set fees. And they moderate the fees. The way the fees work, the Audit New Zealand put up what they think is going to be. They discuss that with management. It will be moderated by the OAG. They will decide if there's a disagreement. They will basically step in and say, right, it's going to be this much. So you don't have very much choice because the OAG is the auditor under statute of all councils. And so it's a bit of an academic question. In the private sector, you've got a choice. If you don't like the fee you charge, you go elsewhere, but you don't, this isn't an option.
So this is our option, the only option.
It's the only option.
It's a limited option. And we talked through with them the rationale, you know, they increased hours. There's obviously auditing standards continue to, so there's an increased expectation of more work that they need to do. You know, quite frankly, next year you might find, because there's extra complexity, because we're at that point where we're transitioning the water over, they'll be wanting to understand all the accounting that we've done for the transition of assets and liabilities from council to the water entity. So I'd fully expect for 26, 27, you might even have a higher audit thing, because there's actually additional complexity to the audit that they're going to have to sign out on. So,
Thank you, AJ.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Do we have a mover and seconder to receive the audit plan and endorse it? David? So, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. We will move on to the first of the reports for information. Just before we start here, most of these are just quarterly reports. I'm going to propose that we take all of these reports as read, go straight on to questions so that more time can be given to actually addressing committee questions rather than just people regurgitating the information that's in the report, which have been pre-circulated. So if we can start with the, the minutes first. So that's easy. They've actually been approved by council, so we're just receiving. Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Stella. All of those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. So we'll then move on to the Arapoi Regional Trust report. Right. Any questions?
Make sure you come to the gallery, the Only Tally exhibition's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Can we have a mover and seconder to receive that report? Thank you.
We get to discuss, do we no discussion or comments?
Well, there were no questions.
No, I know, but that's fine. Questions and then discussion a separate
Oh.
thing.
Sorry.
Is that, we still
Yep,
doing
sorry,
that?
we can do that, yep.
Yeah. I don't have anything. I do, and I'll make sure I'll be able to discuss some without asking questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is a discussion point. I know I do read these reports, but and I know we're getting an email about this as well, but I quite like it when Sarah comes up and just, and I acknowledge it's fine, but she might share something that relates to the report that will raise a question. And I don't know how the others feel, but I like that little narrative, even though I've read the report myself.
I'm charged with operating this committee in the most efficient way that I can, and I find complete but yet concise reports are a time saver, and then it focuses the committee members' time on the issues that are important. If you want to change that, can.
I mean, sure meeting ground, but I don't know what the other room feel. Maybe I'm the only one here that's like that. But I do like that narrative, and I just feel like I don't know. I just feel a bit empty after seeing Sarah come in.
Yeah.
What? But there with the laptop. We don't know she's got a lot to share about an organisation that doesn't really work, and sometimes that little bit of a narrative I feel is just and adds a little bit of substance to the meeting. But I acknowledge what you're saying as well. It's about time and running an efficient meeting. But that's just my personal view.
Okay. In all the other council audit committees I sit on, chair, it's quite common that we just take the reports as read, go straight into questions. Some of these meetings go on for 4 or 5 hours. You never get through an agenda. She did that. And really, these are quarterly reports, so they're really just updating with what's gone on. David.
Through the report, it says on track or achieved, so that sort of tells me that things are on track.
Well, it does, doesn't it?
Perhaps they could give a couple of minutes on it, I don't know. I don't think that's
Well, there is some narrative in the report. I think we've got to try and get people to make the reports complete. I think if we're relying on a mixture of a written report and then presentation, we're going to be here for hours. Thank you. And I have a mover and second to go receive that report, please. David, thank you. Thank you. Who said aye? Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. We now move on to the destination Wairarapa.
Two, actually, if that's all right.
Yes.
Welcome, Anna. Thank you, Matt, for supporting. Anna, tell me, is dark skies still a hot topic when you're out and about at these trade shows for Wairarapa? And second question is, I'm quite intrigued to know, is there any way we can obtain data or figures, I guess, from our providers of dark sky attractions or hotels, accommodation, where people are specifically staying? I guess I just want to gather, because we've invested quite well in the dark sky, region, and I guess it'd be nice to know what the outcome of that has been. Is there any way we can?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Report on.
Absolutely, the dark sky opportunity is still alive and well in the international market, and certainly growing domestically as well. The more people understand that it's not necessarily about planets and looking through telescopes, can have other ways that it turns up in terms of health and well-being, astrophotography. It can be planets, it can be moons, it could be astrology if that's what people are interested in. So the more that our national public are understanding how they can engage with a reserve or with the dark skies, it is growing. Internationally, even more so, 80% of the world can't see the Milky Way. And the more that we introduce them to what we have on offer here, the more they want a piece of it. And particularly in the Southeast Asia area, where when you get into those humid months and it's almost unbearable, there's certainly an uptick in interest and desire to come to New Zealand and experience that. And with us being only an hour and a half out of Wellington, we're very accessible. Particularly as I understand that there are a couple of Asian airlines who are eyeing up Wellington shortly to come in direct from that part of the world. To your second point, data around accommodation and that sort of stuff is commercial, and it's to understand growth in bed nights or revenue. You'd have to go direct to those particular operators or accommodation provider. One way you could do it is look at places like Mackenzie, which is specifically really their tourism is all about the night sky and the reserve. However, the difference there is their market is very different. They have a lot of big buses that come out of Christchurch on their way to Queenstown, and it's game as opposed to what we're looking to attract, which is smaller numbers, higher margin. So it's a challenging one to compare with. Kaikoura could be an example that we could have a look at, but they also have a very strong industry focused around the whale watch, as we have in wine and food. So it's a little bit challenging to really understand and pull it down to into a particular sector within a sector.
I've just got two more questions, if that's okay. Yeah, two. I know, but I've now got another two. Is that all right? That have come from, yeah. So just in the data on the report, you know how some regions are doing well in regards to their tourism spend, etc., and others not so well. Do you investigate, like, for example, Taranaki is one of those regions that have done really well in their tourism spend? Do you go and just do a little bit of research to see what they're doing? That we're all different, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and find out what.
Often it comes round to from a domestic point of view, because domestic has been all down.
Yeah.
We are more susceptible to where Wellington's economy is sitting at, and as we know, it's not a particularly good place. Taranaki has the opportunity to pull from Wellington and also from Upper North Island, so from Auckland as well. So they're slightly different, but often the peaks and troughs through domestic is related to events and people coming into a region for that. So absolutely investigate what's going on. Usually we can predict, or I can predict why, for example, if it's in the South Island ski season, and if you're looking at Queenstown, Wanaka, etc.
Yeah.
If it's in Auckland, you've got to look at what events are on, if there's month-long sailing or shows. For us, the most pleasing thing is our increase in international spend, and the figures that just came out recently, which are more up to date than what now, we had a 46.1% increase in international spend in March compared to the year before. So what we're doing in the Dark Sky, Lonely Planet, Food and Beverage, Classic New Zealand Wine Trail, what we're doing in that space is really working. And it's through State Highway 2. So where Marston sits on State Highway 2.
Awesome. And just to remind the elected members in the room, can you just tell us again who is part of your team on Destination Wairarapa exactly? So in all this magnificent work,
There's
you
me.
must have a team of 10.
No, there's me and there's 2 marketing people. So we have a marketing manager and a digital manager. We also manage the eyesight.
Yes.
Emily, thank you for your report. I note this report is to the 31st of March. There have been some reasonably significant events happen since then. Are you currently seeing any adverse or positives from those effects that are out of our control?
Are you talking about the weather event?
No, I'm talking about the global economy.
Global economy. To the point on the bridge though, that's a concern. State Highway 2, that's our only asset. That's what brings people in and takes them out. But in terms of Iran and Iraq, there is, from a positive point of view, people still want to take holidays. And some of them in certain parts of the world are completely oblivious of what's going on in the Northern Hemisphere. The attractiveness of the Northern Hemisphere is not particularly high at the moment, and the cost of getting there is pretty challenging. So the Southern Hemisphere, and in particular New Zealand, we have a reputation for being safe and welcoming to international visitors. Americans, they have high American dollar. We've got good spending power for them, and we're an attractive option for them at the moment, and they are coming. For Australians, who is our key market for the Wairarapa in particular, they are looking at us in the near to short term because they're not heading north and they still want to take a holiday and they can come back multiple times. We appeal to them because we're only 3.5, 4 hours across the ditch. You can get home quickly. The costs, although some flights availability of them have been reduced, the cost isn't completely prohibitive at this stage. And Tourism New Zealand is reporting the same thing, but things like wine, food, when we get into winter stargazing ski, still really good. The forecast for arrivals is looking pretty good for the short term, but we're all watching because this is a long game.
Thank you.
Just thanks, Anna and Matt. Just in relation to Craig's question, with a lot of our tourists are from Wellington, and the cost of fuel's gone up probably by at least 50%. Is that or are there plans in place to sort of address that, to look at ways to attract people to our attractions despite that?
Yep, 100%.
What sort of things would you be doing? I mean, I think about things like mountain biking, like we talk about Dark Skies a lot being an attraction, but the rail trail was a top 10 Lonely Planet attraction not that long ago. So what sort of things do we look at in that region?
Sure, and we've already been having a think about that and how we would react. It's important not to react too quickly. We've got to watch what their levers are they're going to pull and what they're going to say in the future. But in the background, we're working on how we're going to communicate into Wellington in particular, and that's around ensuring that they understand that the train is an option. And that there are electric charging stations here in Masterton, and that hiking and cycling is an option, and that there is a lot to do and you can get here, carpool, all sorts of things, the way we can communicate with Wellington to ensure that they still come over the hill. Depending on each of the different levels, it's going to get more challenging. There is also thoughts around areas that we can provide more visual stimulation through our digital channels, so that when people can move again, we have had practice with this in COVID, when they can move again, that they remain relevant. In terms of the also the cost of things, you know, it's the wonderful event that was at Hood Aerodrome just over in the weekend open day. That was fantastic. It was affordable. It was family friendly. It was something. It was a style of event that we kind of need to see more of, and of these small, not necessarily small. You know, it's 1,500, 2,000 people there, but options for people to come over and not have to spend a whole heap of money, but they could still have a nice day out. And we achieve relevancy by putting more of these events in front of that Wellington Manawatu Bay market, because they continue to come back and see what's new in our area. Thank you.
No more questions. Can we have a mover and seconder? Ms. Paul, please. Thank you, Stella. Thank you, Craig. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
It's carried.
Discussion. Second. Oh, yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I just want to make one quick comment, because usually we can at the end. Anna and your team, thank you. What I noted in your report, and I was really impressed with, was, and I know we bang this drum a lot with you, and you get under a little pressure around what the deliverables are for Masterton. And I think from your marketing and the promotion and the work you've done with the, you know, e-magazines, etc., and actually getting a bit more of Masterton out there on that platform is awesome. And I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. I mean,
Right.
look, 50% of the tourism spend happens in Masterton.
Exactly.
And by default, 50% of the employment, people who work in tourism here, reside here in Masterton, and therefore the employment earnings go back to the Masterton rate. It's incredibly important, this part of the world. And, you know, I love Masterton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Next, the Wairarapa.
Here to everyone.
Aye. Yes. Eve, do you mind introducing our lovely new?
Thank you, Stella. Sure. Terry Shudkin is our new general manager. Probably members are aware that we have had a change the operations side of business Wairarapa over the last 6 months. Nicola's job was getting bigger and bigger, and we felt as a board that it would be better suited if it would be split two ways with two distinct skill sets. So we have Te Ata Hawkins, who is a machine when it comes to getting things done, all things digital, operations, organisation. Terry has a, rush it here and help me out here, but a very strong connection with Wellington, with strategy, with the sort of organisation of an organisation, and it's my number one support as chair. Could you add to that?
As I've said to a few of the people, the board reached, I'm not sure what their decisions were, but I agree with it. They reached a point where they said, I think it's almost unfair for anyone to ask them to do both roles because they are so different. So the board tells me they've split it into, I do strategy and relationships, and Te Ata does operations and logistics and events. I kind of go, she does the urgent stuff and I do the important stuff, you know? And so I think if you had one person doing it all, you know, you're never going to focus on the important, doesn't have a deadline, because you have 20 people arriving tomorrow for workshop, you know? So by splitting the role allows me time to do some of the thinking and some of the strategy work. And yeah, that makes sure everything runs smoothly.
And from my observation, with being part of Business Wairarapa over a short time, but observing it for a longer time, it's a natural progression and it is a very much stronger position, I would say, that we've put ourselves in now at exactly the right time in its growth. To be at the high level and the busy stuff as well. Thank you.
Eve, thank you for coming. I see you've got 118 businesses that are members. What percentage of businesses would that be in town? Is that just Masterton, or would you go across the river to the Wainara Industrial Centre or Garden?
No, we stop
At the bridge.
at the bridge.
Yeah.
Anybody south of that is Carterton.
Okay.
We do say that anybody who really the members get to choose which organisation they want to become a member of.
Yeah.
But most people are relatively on they stick with their, would go Carterton, Tupuana. But all of our events are open to anybody. Our BA5s, we definitely try and cross-pollinate as much as possible and market them out to all the other organisations and bring people in. Because we've got the biggest population, we have a lot more energy going on in Masterton than the other associations. So anybody who wants to be part of a business group just usually just comes to our events.
Okay.
Thank you. Just with the business survey on page 68, what are the advantages of doing it biannually when things are moving so quickly at the moment? And I feel like yearly would be an option to get them.
Are you referring to the, sorry, I don't have page 68. My report was only 3 pages.
It's
The one that we ran in December
second
24.
page. One of
Yeah.
the second.
Okay. I guess that's one thing I do need to talk to Matt about is I think having me and you, it's a good opportunity to say, what do we want and why do we want it? So my first question on any survey is always, what are we trying to achieve with it? And it could be, my experience with surveys is you change it up each time. So you come up with a cycle depending on how quickly things are moving. Then you either have different questions each time to cater for the current environment, or you do the same questions that, so you can see trend analysis. Or sometimes I find with this that you do a little combination. You might have 20 questions that are the same and 2 special questions for that quarter or whatever it is. And so obviously we didn't run one in December, January because I hadn't started yet. Before we do the next one, I think Matt and I need to talk about what does the council want out of the survey? Are we looking at the survey the right way? And what's the right frequency? And I agree with your point. There are times when maybe every 2 years is fine, and there are times that once a year is fine, and times that once a quarter might be fine.
I think looking at trends with the same question, at least portion of being the same questions is really beneficial.
Yeah.
To see. And I think things are moving incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
I feel like yearly is not an unreasonable expectation.
Cool. One of the things I did at my last organization, we had one survey that we did it actually quarterly, and we had every question was the same, so we could see trends. And then each quarter we had this quarter's question, so that would be, you might say this quarter do something on how bad is the fuel crisis impacting you, or what have you done as a result of the Iraq situation. So you could make just one question be non-trendy, but just to identify what's going on in the current climate. That would probably be my recommendation. I found that worked really well.
Thank you.
No more questions? I have a move for the resolution to see them.
Yep.
Thanks, Stella. Seconder. Thanks, Brent. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have the regular update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Any questions?
I do have one, so I'm just scrolling through my pages to find I have one question for Terry, just in regards to, and it's not a big question, page 78, just P2 barking, wandering and welfare. So obviously that at the moment is sitting at 578 service requests. But my question is, it says the team strive to attend within 24 hours, but I was a bit perplexed by that because if you've got a wandering dog, it would have wandered off if you don't get to it at a quicker rate than 24 hours. So I just wanted to understand, is there another guideline as to how soon you can get, if I was to call you to say I've just seen a dog wandering with a cat in its mouth type thing? Yeah. Or chicken.
Yeah. So P2, we've got to prioritise because it comes back to level of service. So if councillors decided that they wanted to make that a priority one call, which we attended urgently, then we would do that after hours as well. If we get a call like a wandering dog, and we of course will get to it as soon as we can. So during office hours, we definitely staff are jumping out and getting to it as soon as.
So if we as elected members decided that wandering dogs, because of historical event, or not historical, recent events, we saw that the community may benefit from it becoming a P1, we can change that.
You could
level of
have
service.
a look at the level of service, yes, but it would have resourcing implications.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I just, yep, that's cool. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, I just want to acknowledge, I can't remember the guy's name, but there was
Andy?
one great dog at Blakely School a short time ago and he was there really, really quickly.
I think that was Andy.
Yeah. Thank you to Andy.
David.
Shane, with regards to the granny flats, there are a lot of inquiry for them. And do you see any pitfalls? Being it's,
I think we've issued about 4 PIMs for them, so
yeah,
one 3, 4 months. We get the odd inquiry, but not too many.
do you see any pitfalls with them with regards to the situation?
Well, our first ones was like a perfect example of where you could use it. Our second one we got in was a perfect example where not to put it. So kind of like 2 extremes within 2 applications. I suppose it's whether there's hazards on the land that was flooding. The second application.
Yeah. Great. Are there any more questions?
Could we get I suspect that public excluded, could we get an update on, there is an email that's coming through with it?
Yes.
There is a problem, but I suspect now is not the time to do that. Can we get an update on that sometime?
Thanks, Brent.
If there are no more questions, then I have a mover to receive this report. Thank you, Tim. Seconder?
Yep.
Rob Wyrigan. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Discussion.
I've got a discussion. I noticed on our drafts that we have around building consents and applications and that. The first one around applications is very busy. It has 5 years, whereas the others only have 3 years. Possibly in the future, it might be just a little bit quite pedantic. But yeah, I'll just stick with the 3 years. Yeah, thank you.
I was going to ask that question, but I thought it was too pedantic.
Okay, right.
Not you.
Corporate carbon emission.
This is very old.
Right. I'm looking at the one on online, so still I one, but there's a list of all the positive things happening in council to reduce emissions on page 2 of the report. But do we look at things that we're doing that are detrimental as well? And how we sort of looking at those particular, how we addressing them?
We don't through the emissions reduction plan, nature of the plan, but I am at the moment on, told you in 2024, I think, that around this time of year, I was going to work on a full review of the emissions portfolio, which is what I'm doing now, because it needs a bit of an update. But at the moment, we're not. That involves adaptation through key documents. So we need to, no, not through this platform, but we are elsewhere.
Thank you.
Amy, with regards to the installation of water tanks on new builds, is that a legal requirement now, is it, or is it a bylaw?
Gone through the district plan.
Okay. It hasn't come first yet, has it?
Trying to find it's part of the district plan.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just hadn't picked up on that, but I think it's a great idea.
They did stormwater.
Sorry,
It'll help out the stormwater.
hopefully, yeah, yes.
No, not following.
Well,
No, talk to you later.
Sorry, I think Brent was.
Yeah, I suppose in the past, I've been a little bit worried that there's too much reporting going into this. And I see that, since the adoption of the plan, things have changed, so we'll have another go at it. And whereas I just wonder if there's a much simpler way of sort of selling a green culture than necessarily doing it the bureaucratic way.
I think there'll be an opportunity to go through that, through the environment program review. So that'll look at everything that we're doing now and what the context of what's happening overseas, what's happening at national level, and what our immediate are. So
Overseas travel involved.
not yet.
No.
Right.
Just around the encouraging EV charging providers, any idea what kind of number we're looking to increase that to?
No, that'll, we're trying to enable charging companies to come. So at the moment, the government have just given 2 of the charging companies some funds to increase the numbers. So I'm going to a meeting for that later in the month. The thought that we could potentially get some charges out of the coast, but it's not our decision. It's where the companies that want to place the charges.
Okay, thank you.
Just in relation to that,
Go on.
just having been to Shanghai, which is 1,000 times more people than we have, almost every car's electric.
Yeah.
Were you aware of that? I mean, it's got nothing to do with the report really, but just in regards to charging infrastructure and things like that, I found that I was astounded. I couldn't believe it.
It's interesting, eh?
We could have known that.
I didn't. Can the council pay for my trip? So I paid that point.
She doesn't have a budget.
So really,
It's fascinating. It really.
yeah,
I think it's a
there's
reflection.
been a huge movement to electric.
If there's no more questions, can we have a mover, please? Thank you, Craig. Seconder. David, any discussion? It's not. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you very much. Andrew, 9 months to date financial report.
Back up again, obviously we'll take it as read. I guess just highlight without going through it all, the key matters is probably a good summary of where we are with our financial position.
thank you, Andrew, for your report, which I have read, just around the financial contributions, because I always like this category of money. We can't really predict what's going to come in. Well, we can predict what's going to come in, but given we're in a great position, we're ahead of what we've predicted. Do you think that's going to, I guess, my question actually is this, sorry, I'm not wording it very well. I would love to know within those financial contributions, where that money is coming from. Is it property development? Is it building consent? You know, like.
So, okay, well, we can provide that.
Yeah, I don't want to but it's just, it'd be quite interesting. I don't know if other members feel the same, but it'd be quite interesting to understand what those financial contributions are, like where the money's coming from, because if it's all to do with property development, that's telling us a story. If it's all to do with different things, then it tells us a different story.
Yeah, a significant amount of it is coming from property development, from development contributions. We have got an increased amount in building consents income as well. So it's across the board. And there's no one. In terms of predicting what it might be in the future, well, that could be impacted by any number of things. The impact of the Iranian war may impact on the cost of construction, and which will stop people, etc. Conversely, you could say potential RMA reform may encourage people because it's easier for them to. So I guess when we're preparing the annual plan, we try and use the information we have at that date, and like all good economists, you can say the factors were different from what the assumptions were when you
and it's a pleasant surprise, right?
Certainly in the first part, we had the benefit prior to me arriving of Somerset retirement village coming on board, which gave us a big lift to start with, etc. And that's just flowed through for the balance of the year as well. So.
Good, thank you.
Brent.
Just on bottom of page 87, civic facilities, 3.921 million expenditure. What makes that up?
Sorry, which page are you on?
Page 87, the very bottom.
So which pair? Civic facilities. So that's to do with our capital expenditure. So if you go, it's capital expenditure as opposed to operating. So if you go down to page 89 and 90, we would have explained it.
Queen Street purchase?
Yeah, a lot of it's to do with the town hall and the Waiata House extension and the timing of that. And that the budget's forecast to be underspent this year because of those adjustments to the extension project needs. So when we did that annual plan, we were expecting to undertake the work at a timing situation.
Could I, it doesn't have to be now, but I would be interested to know what you spent on the town hall budget with demolition and start times and sort of.
I haven't got it on my.
No,
I haven't got it on my.
Sometime soon.
Yes, coming in the report, isn't it?
Well, it should be included in their expenditure to date in terms of project management, etc. So, and obviously we've had the contract for the demolition, and that was awarded, etc. So yeah, we'll bring it back there.
And the rehabilitate, the interim.
Yeah.
Just for the first time going March by March by March, the arrears has dropped slightly.
Yep.
And you've got the paragraph, council continue to work with people falling behind with their arrears. So what specifically are you doing to sort of hold the slide?
Well, look,
slightly.
I think it's much more about when, you know, we have I guess you call it an operating process, that if people have become into two installments in arrears, we will look to work with them and see how we can put a balance in place. As I mentioned in there, when we enter into arrangements and people catch up their arrangements, we remit their penalties if they've caught up. Obviously, if they go back in and they don't get their direct debits in place. So it's around setting up direct debits, etc., working with them to see how they can afford to get it in place. And it's working well, I guess is what we're saying. I think, as I said in there, in the last quarter, we had 22 people that caught up and had their penalties remitted, and we've got another 100 odd that we're working with. So it's still quite a small percentage of our total rate paying base. It's 100 over 14,000 odd rate payers. So it's around trying to not let arrears get way out, and then suddenly somebody gets out to an impossible position to ever catch up sort of thing. So,
Yeah, it's just good to see the slide upwards, coming slightly down.
yeah, look, I think it's, you know, there's always the question about affordability. And I think it's how its officers and the rates team can actually work with people to ensure they can keep on top of their obligations as house owners. So,
Rates capping will make them affordable.
well, yeah, no comment.
But well done.
Thank you. Pass that on to the rates team. Oh, hold on.
If there are no more questions, can we have a mover, please? A resolution to receive the report. Thank you, Craig. Seconder. Thank you, Brent.
Comment.
Bob.
Yeah, it's around the solid waste. You know, I think it's really perverse that people do the right thing. They send less waste to the tip, but now their rates requirement has to go up because of the lack of tonnage. It just seems a really perverse result for ratepayers.
Yeah.
Actually, I find it annoying. That's my comment, okay?
Yeah, I think it's a perverse result for council measuring it, in that the better the aim of reducing waste, the worse the figures get. And that's something, I don't know, I'd like to look at what other, if someone's solved that. I mean, at the moment, every time the economy takes a dip, the tonnage drops. But if we do get genuine shrinkage and rubbish numbers, it's not a positive. There's something, there must be, with council's creativity and finance, there must be a better way of expressing it.
Needs to be added to the carbon emission.
David wants to make a comment there because he's involved in the solid waste contract renewal as well.
Some comment in that. There's a portion of variable cost in transporting the waste to Bonnie Glen and the cost to Bonnie Glen dump it. So the volume production means those costs come down as well. But there's a portion of fixed cost in having a transfer station open 7 days a week for the public level of service. That is a fixed cost that isn't covered if the volumes go up or down. We're paying that anyway. Volumes drop, we top up the overhead cost or the operating cost of the transfer station with rates if there isn't enough volume. And in the following budget year, we have to put up the rate per tonne further to cover those overheads. So it is a contradiction, solid waste. We want to reduce it, but we also want to offer a service. And it's a discussion as part of the LTP as to what that level of service is the council wants to engage in. You don't have to run a transfer station. You let that be run by the private sector and have no risk at all to the. But it's not a discussion for here. It's part of the long-term plan and what levels of service the council wants to provide in the waste area.
Okay, if there's no further comments, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to the non-financial performance report.
Question. This in regards to the 15 complaints related to sewage odour. How many of those complaints are recurring issues? And were any of those from Coburn?
A very good question, one I don't know off the top of my head. I'll just check the expert behind me to see that was not yet, otherwise I can find out for you.
I probably am not in a position to be able to answer that question.
Okay. I can come back to you on that one.
Stella.
Thanks, Josie. Excuse my ignorance. I'm just trying to refresh my memory as to why
On the Taumata Arawai, we've got the not achieved status there around the water, and likewise for solid waste. Can I just be reminded as to why that is? I think I know why it is, but why has we're not improving? Is there a reason why we're not improving? I can't remember what the reason is
Sure. So
on those two matters.
yeah, certainly for both of those ones, because we haven't achieved it in one of the quarters, we can't achieve the rest.
Got you. Thank-
That's 100%.
Perfect. That's all I
So
need.
it will be the same thing.
Yep, perfect. Okay, thank you. I knew there was something, I just couldn't remember what it was.
There's a lot of measures there too.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions? No? Can I have a move for the resolution to receive the report, please? Thank you, Brent. Second.
Yeah.
Thank you. David?
Okay,
Yes.
I mean, I just wanted to know with the big storm, sewage overflows, what was the reaction in that area down Kurupuni Street with regards to where the flooding was last year?
Is that something you can respond to?
Yeah, I don't believe we've had complaints from Kurupuni Street this year. In fact, some of the infrastructure upgrades that the team had undertaken around town have performed pretty well on observation. So the urban stormwater network performed pretty well. There are a couple of isolated areas that we will be addressing over the course of the next couple of months to ensure there's a resolution.
Yeah, I drove down that street up to through it all, right, but there's one place on Colombo Road still flooding there.
I know the place is in front of my house. So that particular area, I can assure everybody drained very quickly after the event.
Very good.
Okay.
And sorry, just adding, there was a Puraloo outside one of the houses on Cobridge. But I thought that is,
There was something that the team had looked into immediately. So that's definitely one of the spots that we'll be addressing over the next couple of months.
I think just to add to that though, we're still working through the cross connections throughout the whole of that catchment. So we're doing it's significantly better.
Ongoing.
When there's an event, we send the likes of Duncan and water team out, even during the event, to lift up manholes to make sure that everything looks good. They reported back during the weather event a few weeks ago that it was performing well. But you've got to remember our network too will never, with the amount of inflow, etc., that happens too, if there's a big weather event, none of our network will cope to the extent, we have a level of service 1 in 100 or 1 in 50, it depends on the location. So, but it performed well for what it had to do over that time.
and just on a positive note, I did see a whole bunch of leaves somewhere. I thought, I hope somebody's going to clean it up. And I didn't put something through. Didn't notice that the leaves were gone by the time that the weather event hit. So
I just want to, Josie, and this is for all council staff involved in the library, and it just you can see that the usage figures are still very good, even though we have a smaller building. I just think it clearly reflects the commitment and the level of service that you will put in. So just want to thank you.
And just to say to the library that it would possibly help the usage if you had a after hours return slot.
Right. There's no further discussion. I'll put the resolution to receive the report. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Brings us to health and safety report. Got a question?
Yes, thank you. Hi, team. I'm really intrigued and I'm also very impressed to see the total staff with leave over 25 days has come right down. What have we done to get that so miraculously, in my mind, at a really manageable level? The total staff with leave over 25 days is right down to only, that's superb. Like it was really high. Now it's literally
Giving good regular data to the managers of that
team and the managers have been very proactive in having conversations with the individuals to get answers. So it's gone really well out across the whole station.
Well, congratulations. Team for that. That's a really good result.
Great.
The employee assistance program, this is people have had accidents and we're helping them.
It's counselling support for overwhelm. So it's a wellbeing initiative to make sure that our staff can perform at their best.
So I see in here, there's no actual register of possible accidents or something that has happened, like someone slipped and fell or something.
We had very low reporting through January, March for any incidents. So injuries, I think there were 2 first aid injuries across the whole of that period. So it's very low.
It's just that basically you're doing, council are doing a great job and things are tracking along pretty well. Yep.
Even with all the movement.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think one of those injuries was actually a strain injury during the movement.
Getting people to work too hard.
Any further questions? Not, can I have a mover, please? No. So.
Yep.
Yes, thank you, Stella. David, any discussion?
I'd like to just compliment you on your report. This is a really great report. It's easy to read. It's well done. It reminds me a bit of Maz's old report that she produced, but thank you. Great report. Would lead an example. Appreciate it.
Further discussion? If not, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Item 6.10, fuel price rise and government bonds phase.
Thank you, Council. So this is essentially a verbal update. I know it's been quite a few questions and awareness across council and just general public around fuel price rise. So the government has a number of government agencies that are monitoring the situation, and they have different phased responses in respect to addressing that on a national basis. So currently we're in phase 1, which is a watchful phase. So there's been a price spike, but supplies we've got confidence in supply. And the flow-on effects are particularly noticeable for the price of diesel. That's currently sort of like focus out at the moment, percent price. The phase 2 is a precautionary approach, and that's when they'll start to look to implement a wider public sector response, and that's something that internally we're looking to start to prepare for. If we start to move phase 2, it's when a bit more pressure comes on, further increases in price, and those first indications around supply side challenges. Phases 3 and 4 are triggered by major disruptions in fuel supply into the country, and that then takes on a more national focus in terms of addressing that, and then other measures, other more, I guess, drastic measures start to come into play as part of that plan. So we're preemptively sort of, I guess, planning for our response should the government move into phase 2, and that will help to complement the national sector, public sector response. It's similar to what other councils are starting to plan for at the moment as well. Given our sort of, I guess, rural regional context, the smaller contractor base, and the public's general sort of reliance on road transport, then we're going to look at being proactive and ensuring continuity of essential services and delivery of committed capital investment. We've got existing contracts across services that we provide, and we are engaging with those contractors at the moment with those contracts. They have flagged to our main contract managers that they will be wanting to have discussions with us around contract terms and items that they can start to escalate through the contract around possible changes to those contracts. So I guess the contracts where those have been flagged include our capital program and essential services contracts. Across the workforce, we're looking to assist in the conservation of, I guess, a wider fuel supply, and look to encourage several measures. Once we move into phase 2, fine. So carpooling and remote work, where people have the ability to be able to work from home, so conserve fuel if required. To provide coordination support, so that this can be addressed, and works with the council in terms of providing our service commitment to the public. We'll look to prioritise essential services, so we'll make those decisions. We move into phase 2. So moving to phases 3 and 4, there'll be a more of a regional coordination that will be led by Remo. So that starts to take on a more regional emergency, and that's where their role is fits within the national emergency response. And of course, there will be several things that we'll have to bring to council. We're moving into phases 3 and 4, but that is often sure and really dependent upon external forces beyond even our government's control. The financial impact really for council at this stage revolves around the price spike in fuel, operating costs for the vehicle fleet, cost index changes for existing contracts, and potentially in phase 2 some revenue decreases if there's reduced parking activity, for example, in CBD. We'll be looking to offset those challenges by making use of our electric vehicle fleet where this would be used. So a lot of cases, maybe the EV fleet isn't fit for purpose, but we're looking at that and working with the teams around how we can coordinate best use of the EVs. The price increases that have been flagged through council's current contracts and indirectly our price that we'll pay for contracts being released to the market, something that we'll test with the suppliers. We've had guidance from the New Zealand Transport Agency on approaches to roading contracts, roading maintenance contracts. We'll look to have an open book policy for these suppliers. Clearly, they're flagging to us that they, in some ways, are struggling with managing the price increases, but they are trying their best. So from all indications with the suppliers that we've been talking to, they've been managing so far to internalise those costs and be more savvy with their logistics and the way that they operate to provide those services back to us. But we still need to be, of course, by a reasonable test, and we'll be taking some cues from what other councils are doing in respect to the way that they're treating the same approaches to the contracts as well. We have a list of risks and mitigations that we'll be actively managing. I'll be working with the ELT as to whether or not those then feature in our corporate risk register. But essentially, this is a verbal update, really just to understand that there are some challenges in the market at the moment, and we are being to address those.
Any questions? Right.
Thanks, that verbal output. I noticed we talked about roading. Do you believe there is a risk that in order to stay within our cost structure, that we may end up getting less roading done for the same price?
That is, it is a risk. At the moment, it is being managed within our existing contract. Now, our contract has been proactive, or will be very active in terms of fixing price for fuel, for example, but that won't be something that could be sustained into the long term. So we are having those discussions now under the NZTA guidance us around measures that we can reasonably negotiate with the contractor in terms of price level increases, hopefully to retain the same amount of activity. But where we do need to reduce activity, then we'll have to work through our prioritised program, and then come to the council to show where we look to draw the line in terms of the delivery of services.
You don't believe the possibility of maybe NZTA increasing funding towards us to make up for the possible shortfall?
Look, it's definitely a potential. They've got the ability to move funding around different activity classes, and they've certainly moved a lot more funding recently into maintenance and operations with their new contract delivery model. So there is every potential that they may look to.
Thank you.
Actually, no, it's not a question, it's a comment. Apologies.
Is NZTA's income, I presume, rising quite.
They certainly have the fuel taxes that they collect, and it's all dependent upon activity. So,
Do they talk to you guys and say, well, hey,
all those discussions are always ongoing. The National Land Transport Fund, the National Land Transport Program, which ultimately does provide our funding, and that's all predicated on future revenue forecasts. So they've got, if they have changes in their revenue forecasts, they'll then generally flag that through the amount of funding approved, released out to ourselves as local authorities.
Any further questions? Tyler, have you been able to estimate what the impact on the operating costs of these fuel increases would be on council in the current year?
Not completely. We are going through contract by contract at the moment. Negotiations are itemized that way. And I guess the collective view across those contracts is that and without the ability to have an open book test, then reasonable is really hard to assess. We really are looking at helping these contractors to sustain their operations to be able to deliver that service or product or project for us. And so, sorry, the long story short, no, we haven't gone through the exercise to provide a full estimate, but we have some assumptions across each contract how much we think an increase might look like.
And the indications are that even if this was resolved very quickly, the impacts on supply chain would continue for a number of months. So I presume there's no forward projection what the impact might be in subsequent years.
It's really not. So I think even the government is perhaps taking cues in terms of how the logistics chain is going to adapt to the ongoing supply issues through the Middle East. So at the moment, I believe the Prime Minister is in Singapore talking to the logistics firms around how to secure more fuel supply from alternative sources. So that movement is happening globally. We'll just have to be the receiver of whatever happens, and the speed of that. Once it's in place, we'll hopefully be able to then suppress fuel price rises at least.
If there are no further questions, can we have a mover for this resolution? Thank you. Seconder?
Yep.
Thank you, Stella. Discussion?
Yeah, I was just going to say around, it's interesting because obviously I'm in the transport domain with my other job, but I see a lot of people are adding a temporary fuel charge, and I've been reading some articles where some people are just adding a fuel charge without calling it temporary. So I guess we need to be vigilant that be mindful of the sneaky ones who are making it a permanent thing when actually it should be a temporary fuel charge until this, unrest settles down, whether or not it will or not. But yeah, it's just an interesting way that people are trying to obviously cover the extra costs, but just the wording and the way about it, there's a few naughties out there.
Yeah, exactly. I believe we have quite a strong set of contract managers. So they are entitled to make approaches to us around inflationary price increases based on certain indices.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, there's I guess that reasonable test, which is always incorporated in all the contracts.
Yeah.
To understand that what is really good is that they are approaching us to flag that this could be a conversation that we're going to have. Helps us to prepare, helps them to prepare on their side. Flag that we'll have those discussions on an open book basis.
Yeah.
So that we understand that we're not going to be paying over and above what is considered to be reasonable.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Work plan. So, sorry. All those in favour of receiving that report, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
To the contrary, carried. Thank you.
Board work plan.
Board work plan.
Just in the context, and won't go through it, it's really just to give an indication of the sort of papers that you can expect to be coming to Finance Risk and Assurance Committee in the future.
Oh,
And part of the suggested format at the end is actually coming to make like the traffic light situation that you've just complimented people on, so.
Great start.
I'll move that.
I'll second that. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, we're going to move it. So with Craig. Second.
Second
Still.
it.
Any comments? All in favour?
Aye.
Yes. Carried. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the open agenda.
Motion to.
We now need a resolution to move into public excluded.
I'll move that.
Thank you, David. And we have a seconder. Tim, thank you. Do we need any discussion? Move. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Good idea. We'll take a